All right, so this video was requested by a few people, both fans on the comments as well as fans in my communities, and it usually comes in different forms, but TLDR, people want a retrospective. And so here we have it. I might do this multiple times, we'll see how it goes, but the idea is rather than predicting the future, let's look to the past and see how bad our predictions were versus or just what has happened in the last 6 months. So with that being said, I got some handy dandy notes here. The biggest thing, the absolute headline. So if we go back 6 months, at the time of recording, it's early October. So I surveyed the AI landscape as it was in March 2025. It is now October 2025. So technically 6 months would be April, but it would just be the beginning of April. So let's just say as of the end of March 2025, where were we at? The absolute biggest takeaway is that agentic AI has become a thing. We went from, like, oh, hey, like, here's this interesting experimental framework, and there was still a lot of doubt about it, and people like Gary Marcus were like, agents are a dud. And of course, now it went from agents are an experimental new technology to the infrastructure and governance plumbing is going in everywhere. And I don't just mean at, like the frontier labs. I mean, everyone, like every major business that I have talked to has been working on implementing agents. Whether they're implementing it, on their own or with the help of like Microsoft and Google and OpenAI, whatever. Everyone is deploying agents now. So it went from hypothetical to actual and rapidly maturing. So now let's break it down into a couple other things. Number one, the biggest thing that you might not realize is Google Gemini came out, or sorry, Google Gemini Pro 2.5 to be specific, came out 6 months ago. So did OpenAI's GPT 4.5 and a couple other things. Grok 3 just came out 6 months ago. So consider all that and where we are today. But one of the biggest things, one of the biggest mindset shifts that happened in industry is that these AI chatbots went from like knowledge engines, because we had figured out RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. We had figured that out. But now they have evolved into action engines. That's one of the biggest things that has changed is it's no longer just a chatbot. They are taking more and more autonomous action and or being able to take action directly guided by the user. So they're becoming more and more autonomous and agentic all the while. So I already mentioned how agentic AI went from software kits to actual architecture. Benchmarks, so let me point out this number here. SWE-bench, so software engineering bench, went from 21% 6 months ago to 70% today. So whenever like people like I say like, oh yeah, such and such bench is at 30%. I just saw a news clipping this morning that that AI can only do 30% accuracy on radiographs. I'm like, okay, that means it'll be solved in a year. Because guess what? They weren't even explicitly trained to solve radiographs, but they're pretty good at it. And now that that's a new target, now that it's a new benchmark, guess what? They're going to saturate it in 6 to 12 months. So as older benchmarks like the MMLU have been saturated, they had to create new benchmarks. So OpenAI just released their GDP val, which the idea is that they're going to, measure the efficacy on real economic products. Now, what I will say is that benchmarks are one thing, but reality and corporate adoption is really the primary thing. It's still good to measure something. It's, because you still need a measurement in the lab to know what you're optimizing for before you even release something. But at the same time, the real market uptake is the primary thing. And by the way, every time I talk to a business leader or a business insider, the veterans, the guys that are older than me that have been doing this for a lot longer, all of them unequivocally say that the uptake of AI, generative AI, has been faster than any other technology deployment in the history that they're aware of. That means faster than the PC, faster than the mainframe, faster than the uptake of the internet, faster than the uptake of cloud computing, all of that. So now for someone who's not a tech insider or has not worked in the tech industry, let me explain what that means, like why that is important. Is because when people are skeptical, people say, oh, well, generative AI is still a nothing burger. Like, they don't know, they honestly do not know what they're talking about. So every time that Gary Marcus says, oh, it's nothing, this, or what's that other dude, Ed Zitron or whatever, like, yeah, they're catering to the mass zeitgeist, but the zeitgeist is wrong. I'm telling you right now, the zeitgeist is wrong. Yes, it's popular to dump on AI to say, oh well, it can't do this yet. It doesn't matter. The internet isn't perfect. Cloud computing isn't perfect. No technology is perfect, but the rate of adoption is the fastest that we've seen in 40 to 50 years for all the living, existing tech insiders and industry leaders. And I mean, from the business side, from the technical side, both sides, they're saying they have never seen anything get adopted this fast. All right, that's my rant. Now, on the research front, we have really pivoted away from like, can it work? Like, is this even feasible? Is it even viable? What's the ROI? Is it going to be too expensive? Is it going to cost too much energy? Can we build out the infrastructure? To what are the consequences? What's the governance? And what's the policy? So it went from, oh, well, we're going to have to deal with this. 6 months ago, they were saying, we're going to have to deal with the ramifications of this at some point in the future, to we're dealing with the ramifications today. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Because that just means the research agenda has updated to the reality of what we're seeing today, which is, okay, the chip demand is there, the data center demand is there, the energy demand is there, tokens are getting cheaper, often by 10x at a time every 5 to 6 months. But then also you say, okay, well, who's going to take responsibility for this? And I know that that's a question that comes up a lot, but it's not like we haven't created automation before. We have had plenty of autonomous and semi-autonomous and automated systems throughout history. It's always the responsibility of the owner. And yes, some businesses are going to have to update their RACI matrix. If you're not familiar with RACI, I don't mean like RACI like wearing skimpy outfits and clothes and public. RACI stands for RACI, which is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So basically, that's a matrix that you create in a business to say, who owns this? So as far as I'm concerned, and as far as most businesses are concerned, it's just a matter of updating the RACI matrix. The rest will be litigated by the courts, which that is actively happening. Anyways, that was kind of a little bit of a segue. So now let's go to, that was the technical side. So I want to talk about the social and perceptual side as well. Like what did people believe back then, and what do they believe now? So again, that transition from ROI to governance, where it was like, all the thought leaders were thinking like, okay, is this going to sell itself? Is this product actually worth it? Is someone going to pay for it? To, okay, people are paying for it. That clearly was not a barrier. So now let's actually get risk management figured out. Let's get governance figured out and that sort of thing. Cybersecurity is another big component. Let's see. So then hype changed a lot. So, there was back in March, there was still, people were still like, oh, hype cycle. And by the way, one of my best performing videos was just a little while ago, and I said the AI hype is cooling off. So one way to interpret this is, and I actually had some people point out that the Gartner hype cycle is itself kind of a flawed metric. It has mimetic, it's a meme, it has mimetic power, but the hype cycle itself is kind of flawed, and meta studies have shown that actually most technologies don't follow the Gartner hype cycle. But with that being said, the hype, which you could define as saying like, okay, you have irrational expectations or irrational exuberance about something, has been transmuted to like the rubber has met the road. And so for me, it's actually more exciting because it's like, yes, it's actually happening. It's actually yielding results. It's actually being implemented, and the conversation has advanced. And so in the Gartner hype cycle, they would say that, we're approaching the slope of enlightenment, of slow enlightenment, but it's a really steep slope. It's happening very quickly. So we've gone from hype, which was, wishful thinking, to this like what I will say is a Cambrian explosion of AI tools, where just a few underlying technologies like diffusion models, transformers, and those sorts of things have just completely exploded. And maybe that's what I'll title this video. The Cambrian explosion has happened in the last 6 months. So for reference, what I'm talking about is about 600 million years ago. I think that's how long ago it was. For most of Earth's history, life was single cellular. So for almost 3 billion years, life was single cellular. But 600 million years ago, life spontaneously discovered multicellular organisms, and then everything changed. So we had this huge proliferation of species, and I really feel like the second half of 2025 will be remembered as the Cambrian explosion of AI. Obviously predictions are dangerous, and I've tried not to do that, but this is what the data is looking like. We've had a huge explosion, so Sora 2 and Suno, and so all the AI music and video generators are just getting much bigger. All right, so now public opinion has also modified. So people are not as concerned about things like using AI for weather forecasting. And there's been some news articles out there saying that AI is better at weather forecasting than humans, which, I mean, it's just a data job, right? Now, obviously, human intuition and local knowledge is one thing, but if you're a climatologist or whatever, like one of my best friends is a climatologist, and he's like, he runs the biggest simulations that you can think of. So, I mean, it's a very data heavy job. Anyways, risks, things like X risk, have really kind of tapered down. With that being said, Americans and people from wealthy nations in general, with a couple exceptions, namely, well, I guess China's a middle income globally, but the developed parts of China are very rich. Anyways, the point is that many people from developed nations are now less excited about AI. They're more wary of it for things like, deep fakes and ethics and job loss. I've talked about that more extensively in a recent video where I said, the AI haters have a point. And there's a lot to talk about, but we have to negotiate our relationship with this technology. And so then finally, the biggest thing is that, kind of what I mentioned earlier, which is no one in technology, whether it's the business or the technical side, has seen AI or has seen a technology advance as rapidly as AI, or the uptake. 88%. So as of October, 88% of executives planned to increase AI budgets, specifically with a big chunk of that being around agentic capabilities. So at the beginning of 2025, end of 2024, I said that 2025 would be the year of the agent, and that has been proven very highly true. Now, obviously, that was only predicting a few months into the future, so anyone could have done that, and apparently I'm not the only one who made that prediction, but that's where we're at. So this has been your 6-month retrospective as of October 2025. We will see where it goes from here, and I'm really excited, and I think that it's great to just take a step back and say, okay, where were we 6 months ago? Gemini Pro 2.5 had just come out, Grok 3 had just come out, and we're already on Grok 4. And now agents have become a real thing. And by the way, I didn't know all of this. As I was doing some research and gathering these notes, I did not realize that some of these numbers had advanced quite as fast as they had. And so when you take a step back and say, that's where we were 6 months ago, that's really impressive. But also, I'm really, really glad that it's just going to keep going. It's just going to keep getting better and more, because that's how we're going to solve problems like longevity and cancer and all those other problems that we want to solve. So, all right, I'm done rambling. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Have a good one.